Don, go ahead. You with us?
Looks like he's still muted.
Yeah. We'll give him a second to figure it out. Jeff McDonald, you want to kick us off? Go ahead.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Brian, for doing this. I guess, first of all, we just got the release on LaMarcus. Anything you can tell us, kind of updating his status and what's going on with him?
Yeah. Well, as you saw, you can remember before things shut down, he had the initial injury back in late February to the shoulder and missed a couple weeks, came back and played in the Dallas game. We tried to, take advantage of the hiatus period with rehab and him working to get back. And unfortunately, it just didn't progress the way that we all had hoped. And the best pathway from there was the surgical procedure. So we decided to move forward with that and get him ready for next season.
Aside for that, I mean, obviously it's disappointing he's not going to play, but what is kind of the mood, the excitement level to get this thing kicked off again and to have at least a chance to make a run at that playoff berth?
Yeah. All of our guys are excited to get back and get back in the gym and get going. Obviously, being shut down the last 3 months has been tough in a lot of ways. So we're excited to compete. We're excited to go. Obviously, it's a heavy lift. And, really want to commend the league office and the Players Association, Commissioner Silver, and the leaders at the PA and bringing it all together. It's a lot that has to get done between now and then, but, we look forward to getting out there and continuing to compete and finishing the season strong.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll kick it over to Don. Don, you're unmuted now. Go ahead, man.
Yeah.
WAI.
Hey, Brian, would like to get your reaction to what Adam said the other night on TNT about the possibility of Pop and Alvin and Mike being singled out for their age. Does this put you guys, first of all, have you heard from Adam? Is he backing that down from that? And if not, wouldn't that put you guys at a competitive disadvantage not having Pop on the sidelines?
Don, I think all of that is still TBD on how that all plays out. The league is still working with the Players Association on a lot of different things, on the rules that will govern, how we function during that time period to complete the season. So I don't want to speculate, and, we'll wait for guidance on the league on how we'll move forward. But obviously, you would like your complete group there, but I think the league has made it clear from the beginning that the health and safety for everybody is a priority, and that'll continue to be a priority. And, we'll move forward as the league sees fit, and we'll continue to work with them on that.
Have you guys raised your concerns about that, not only as a competitive disadvantage, but it's kind of an ageism discrimination thing as well?
We've had private conversations with the league. But again, until we know what that exactly looks like, and I think, Adam made that point that they're still working through a lot of that. We'll wait until there's a final determination on that process of who can participate in the return, and then we'll, go from there.
Thanks, Don. We'll kick it over to Mike Finger, columnist at the Express News. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Brian, thanks for doing this. I don't expect you to tell me your long-term plans right now, but I'm just wondering, because of the way, I guess the odd way that this season has been scheduled, do you feel like you have a good idea of what the Spurs organization, the team, is going to look like next year, and how much could that be affected by what happens, for a few weeks in Orlando?
Yeah, honestly, Mike, it's during this 3-month time period, we've just been trying to figure out what's going to happen next week. And so there's obviously a lot to work through with that. We know we have some upcoming roster decisions that you would have in every normal year. And obviously this isn't a normal year. So as we've been working through this, we've been trying to plan, as we always do, whether it's the draft or free agency or, managing your own roster. And we'll continue to do that to try and build out the best plan for moving forward. But this year is unlike any other, as you know. So we'll continue to build out what that looks like as we have more information. But there's still so much to be determined at the league level.
What are your expectations from Orlando? I I mean, is it playoffs or bust, or what? As a GM, what do you expect out of the Spurs there?
I think as I mentioned before, and the league has mentioned, first and foremost, obviously we want to go perform well, continue. Obviously, we finished the season strong, good win versus Dallas before things were shut down. And so obviously we want to continue to do that, continue to grow as a team, continue to grow as a unit. But again, guys haven't been playing basketball for close to 3 months. So there is going to be a focus on making sure that we're keeping our guys healthy and how we best do that. So we want to go play well. We want to go compete. We want to finish the season strong. But we're also going to keep in mind the health and safety of our players and everybody as we return.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. We'll go to Joe Reinagel, Ken's 5. Go ahead, Joe.
Brian, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. Following up a little bit on what Mike was saying, worst case scenario, you have 8 ball games. And maybe this is a pop question, but just from a general manager's point of view, what do you think you can see maybe, or what are you guys perhaps looking for from some of the younger guys that might help you with some future decisions down the line?
Yeah. And just know in the future, all Pop questions will be directed to Pop. So I don't answer the wrong questions. But no, it's a great opportunity for them, obviously, to continue playing, continue development. I think in the last few weeks of the season, you got to see a little bit of Keldon Johnson and what he brings to the table. And I think you'll see that growth and development from a lot of our young guys. So those 8 games are important for us to evaluate, but for them to continue to grow. And so, obviously, like you said, Coach Pop controls the minutes. He controls the game, but it's obviously a great chance for them to continue their development process that they started at the beginning of the season.
Thanks, Joe. We'll go to David Flores, Kens5.com. David, if you unmute your mic, you can go right ahead.
Okay. Brian, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Just want to ask you, what's the mindset that, as far as you can tell? I know the players obviously they're eager to get back on the court and all that, but how do you think it's going to be just so different? No crowd, no crowd noise, and they'll be confined to the quarters there, or basically to that compound. How does all that? I know it's going to be a kind of a work in progress, so to speak. Everything's going to be on the fly, but what are your thoughts on all that? And then also the 8 games. As a general manager, I know you don't obviously worry about the coaching side of it, but would you have wished it was maybe a few more games instead of just 8 games? Get a bigger sample deal, or?
So I'll start with the second question first. And look, to pull something like this off is a tremendous undertaking. So whether it's 8 games or 15 games, it's going to take a lot from a lot of parties to make this happen. So I think the league looked at a lot of different options in a return to play, and this one fit best for a multitude of reasons. And so we're happy that we have 8 games and we have an opportunity to compete and get a chance to play in the playoffs. So, to that question, I think, we're just happy with where things ended up and that we have the opportunity to take part. The second question, it's going to be a huge adjustment, obviously. And to know what it will take, we won't really know until we get into that bubble. We've all done summer league for a couple of weeks, but we've never done anything quite like this. But I think what you'll see is when the ball's thrown up and guys get to playing and competing, you'll see that same competitive nature come out with players and coaches, and hopefully we can put a nice product out for everybody to enjoy playoff basketball. But yeah, there's definitely going to be an adjustment, whether it's living in the hotel or playing without fans. There'll be an adjustment period, but I know that the guys want to compete and crown a champion this season, and we're fortunate to get the opportunity to do that.
Thanks, David. We'll throw it back to Jeff McDonald, Express News. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is it too early to really have a guess about how many Spurs personnel are going to be allowed to be in that bubble?
Yeah. Jeff, you the first time you did the physical hand raise, this time you did the virtual hand raise.
I can do both if you want.
Well, I'm getting used to this Zoom thing, so we'll work through it. No, so I think, again, a lot of that is still being discussed internally with the teams and amongst the league. And again, everything is, has to be negotiated amongst the players and the league. So we'll get official determination on what that looks like over the next week or so. We're starting to get tidbits of information on things like when camp could start and when we could potentially travel. So, there's stuff that's been reported out there, but there's still a lot of negotiation that has to take place. So we're still waiting on that final confirmation.
And outside of LaMarcus, are you expecting at this point all the other players will be available to participate?
Yeah, at this point in time, for those, and we haven't talked about this yet, we did open our facility today. And so it was our first day back in the gym. We've taken a conservative approach to that for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, we wanted to kind of see where things were going in the local San Antonio market with the virus, and we wanted to see a downward trend in the positivity rates, and we've seen that over the last few weeks. And we worked closely with our local health officials to make sure that when we did get back in the gym, if we were to do any testing, that we weren't taking away from the local community's ability to test. And in speaking with the health officials, they had a goal in mind for where they wanted to get to in terms of testing, and we've surpassed that. It's been an incredible effort on their part, setting up asymptomatic testing centers and things of that nature. So we were able to work through all of that and open up our gym today. Guys are floating back in the gym, and to this point, we know everybody's healthy and getting back into the swing of things.
How many guys did you have show up today then?
Still working through it because it's only 2:44. So if this was 6 o'clock, I could give you a full
better
number,
answer.
but
Yeah.
we're still working through. But to your question, we have had a good number of guys stay in market, and they're ready to get back in the gym. So we've had a good number here throughout this time period.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We're going to kick it over to Jackie Wang. Jackie from the Rivard Report. Go ahead, Jackie.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for talking to us today. I wanted to ask, I know things are still in the early stages, but what other health concerns does the Spurs have in mitigating coronavirus transmission during the pandemic? Will players be allowed to sit out if they're concerned about getting the virus, or in the case of a birth of a child or a death of a loved one, would they be able to leave?
Again, great question. And it's something that's being discussed at the league level. And so I don't want to speak out of place here for something that's going to come from the league. But I know the league has discussed being really focused on that and understanding and listening to the players. And this has been a partnership with the PA, walking from step one and what the build-out could look like to agreeing on the format just recently. So I'm sure that's a conversation that they will have. And at that point, we'll have more information in that space. But great question.
You said you wanted to make sure that we weren't taking away from the community's testing supply. So are players going to be getting tested like once every week, or has there been a protocol established for that?
Yeah, there's a protocol and a cadence that we worked with our local health officials on to make sure the rate in which we were doing that they were okay with and they signed off on. So yeah, there'll be a cadence, but there'll also be a cadence as we get into the mandatory period once we ramp up training camp to move into that period in Orlando. So.
Thanks, Jackie. We're going to throw it to Don Harris. Don, WAI, go ahead.
You kind of answered some of my questions regarding the facility being open. Can you tell us like what that looks like? Is it one guy at a time with one PD coach, or is it two or three, or how you guys are going about that? And if guys are showing up willing to get tested, are they tested right away before they even start, and those kind of things?
Yeah, so the protocols for the workouts during this time period follow the guidelines from the league. They kind of outline what that looks like. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio with a player and a coach. There's specific rules on PPE that coaches have to wear, whether it's masks or gloves, certain distance in between players and coaches, certain time slots, and how many people that you can have in the gym. We're working through a time period right now where we only have 2 guys in the gym at a time. So it's very specific, very detailed, very, very thorough, so that we can minimize the impact if anything were to happen or spread, and we could easily trace kind of who was involved during that time period. So it'll be like that until we start to ramp up into training camp before moving into Orlando. But very specific protocols from the league on that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Don. We'll kick it back to Joe Ryan-Nagel, Ken's 5. Go ahead, Joe.
Brian, you may have answered this a little bit, but as far as the rules moving forward with everything from practice here to once you get to Orlando and the games, does the NBA I know you said there were some negotiations between the player and the league, but does the NBA pretty much tell you guys this is how it's going to be done and these are the rules we're going to follow?
In this circumstance, it's so unique that it will be a lot like that. We're on calls with the league a good amount, kind of talking through options, and they're talking to various people within the organization, whether that's the doctors, head athletic trainers, sports science, to kind of come up with these protocols, infectious disease specialists, and they want everything very specific and uniform. So in this case, a lot of it will be that, where it's directives coming from the league.
Thanks, Brian. We're going to kick it back over to Mike Finger, Express News. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, on a completely different note, you were part of that Spurs Voices campaign, and it seems to have made quite an impact from everybody who's seen it. I'm wondering how that kind of came about and what kind of reaction feedback you guys have gotten as a result of that.
Yeah, it was a very powerful and thoughtful piece that a group came up with, a committee, just in how we wanted to try and do our part organizationally to not just make a statement, but make an impact, to educate and to hear different people and how this subject matter has impacted not just those people of color or African Americans, but others within the organization. And we've had some very powerful internal conversations amongst staff, and just the feedback I know internally, and just looking at the responses to some of the videos has been positive. It's a lot that we're going through as a country, and there's a lot of healing that has to happen, a lot of education that has to happen, and then there has to be some change that has to happen, and you hope that things like this, the peaceful protests we're seeing, people speaking up and using their platform will bring about a step in the right direction for things to change.
Thanks.
Thanks, P. We're going to go to RJ Marquez from ksat.com. RJ, if you unmute your mic.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Brian. So kind of jumping off of Mike's question there, what does it mean for you guys to have some of your guys out in the community? If Lonnie Walker was out the day after the first protest here in San Antonio helping businesses clean up, and DeMar DeRozan was in Compton, obviously out there with that mass demonstration. And second question, you mentioned about the guys that were in market. What about the guys that are out of market, and what's the protocol for them to kind of get back to the facility and sort of get all the health checks?
Yeah. So to your first question, we've had a lot of guys step up during this time period and be out in the community, make donations to various organizations, to do their part in this process. And I think that's the one unique thing about all of this is all of our parts that we play are different. Some will look like Lonnie and being out, cleaning the side of a building. Some will look like DeMar speaking out. Some will look like Rudy donating to a fund. Everybody's part to play, all of us, will be different in this. And it's just uplifting each other and the role that you played in creating some of this change. So we support all of those guys and the work that they've done, and we're proud of the work that they've done. To your second question, the league has given us some tentative dates around when guys would need to return to market, where we would start an official training camp, as you would before going to Orlando. So we're in communication with them. We're fortunate, like I said, we have the bulk of our guys in town so they can get in and get to work. But we know the guys that have been out of town, we've been doing things with them virtually. A lot of them may have home gyms or things that they can do. We've been able to monitor kind of what they've been doing and helping them prepare for a return in the next few weeks.
Thanks, RJ. We got time for one more. So David Flores, kick it back to you. Kens5.com. Go ahead.
Okay, Brian, I'd like to ask you 2 questions, one on the court and off the court. Let me ask you the off the court first. I know you touched on it a while ago, but not only as an African American, but as an American, have you been heartened by the response throughout the country by the diversity and during the demonstrations, and how most of them have been by and large peaceful and all that? Have you been encouraged and heartened that maybe this will be a turning point, maybe for this country as far as the race relations go? And then I also want to ask you about the camp. Do you have any idea yet when the camp may be starting here in town, and how many days that would go?
Yeah, you guys are testing my memory with these dual questions in one. So this is a good first run at the
I'll remind you.
interview. Your first question, I think it's absolutely encouraging that you look out amongst the crowd of protesters and you do see a more diverse group. I wasn't alive looking back 60 years ago to see some of those demonstrations and marches, but obviously comparing the two, you've seen that there is some change, and there is a different group of people out there supporting the fight for real change and real equality. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think we just have to continue with that, continue to educate, as I said, continue to share stories, because it's with that empathy, with that real understanding, putting yourself in someone else's shoes to truly know what it feels like and what you've been through. And so I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. And the more that we have that, it will continue to drive the conversation, continue to drive action, and then ultimately continue to drive change. That's definitely been encouraging to see. Now, remind me your second question.
Okay, the question is on the training camp. When do you think when the official start? How many days it'll be? And do you think, I don't know, what's the league? I know that this all still may be ironing out the details, but will they be able to go 5-on-5 at all before they go to Orlando? Will they be those kind of workouts, or is it like it used to be? What do you think?
Yeah, again, those are all things I wish I could give you definitive, firm answers on right now. But again, it's all conversations that are still being had currently at the league level. So, as we get those definitively, we'll be able to share. But we're still working with some things that could change. So I don't want to speak out of turn on that.
So you still don't have a target date for this, or when you start camp, right?
We have a range, but again, until it's official,
sure.
I don't want
okay, I got it.
I want to thank everybody for hopping on. Brian, appreciate your time in a very busy schedule. Everyone, I'll get the video to you guys within 10 minutes. But Brian, appreciate you jumping on it and talking over everything for us. Absolutely. Thank you all. Hope you all have done, are doing well and feeling well through all this. We've been through some crazy times, but thank you for your time today, and look forward to seeing you guys virtually or in person again sometime soon. Thanks, B. Thanks, everybody.